येषां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोतं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि. So I am seated in another part of the temple, just to give you a different view of some of these really old, fascinating Shiva lingams that were worshipped by sage Agastya, by many, many ancient saints and sages over 1,000 years. Today there's hardly anybody that comes here to worship these. So it is our good fortune that we are able to sit here in the silence and in the quietude, in the shadow of these beautiful power centers, and continue this learning of the Yoga Sutras. The 4 types of chitta that Vyasa talks about are these. The first one he says is kshipta. Kshipta, the first type of chitta is kshipta. Kshipta means constantly in motion. The chitta is constantly in motion, constantly jumping from one thing to another, constantly. It is an extreme case. We have all experienced all of this, and none of this is outside our ordinary experience. So this is a type of chitta that is constantly moving, constantly jumping from one thought to the other, jumping from one situation to the other, constantly, never steady. So it's considered wavering, constantly wavering from one thing to the other. So Vyasa calls it kshipta. This is one type of chitta. Then the next one is the other extreme. One is hyper, right? This is kshipta. The next one is mudha. The other extreme is mudha. Mudha means complete inertia. The mind is not able to think, not able to analyze, not able to discriminate, discern, nothing. It is almost in a state of inertia. It doesn't move. It doesn't want to think. So chitta can also be, that is also chitta. Okay? So you have kshipta and you have mudha. And then in between these, Vyasa says there is one in which most of us experience. That is vikshipta. Vikshipta is sometimes we are wavering, sometimes we are inert, but for the most part we try and be steady. Right? So vikshipta is trying to be steady, but we tend to get pulled by inertia, or for the most part we tend to get disturbed and wavering mind. See, many of us think, oh, when I try to meditate, initially it's fine for the first minute, and then my mind keeps shaking and it's all over the place. How does that happen? Vikshipta. Most of us are prone to vikshipta without proper discipline, understanding yoga as a way of life. The vikshipta is, you want to be steady, but then this wavering mind, kshipta, right? Kshipta is the extreme. That kshipta comes and robs us. So that is vikshipta. So there are 3 things we studied. Now we have to understand this from the point of view of the 3 gunas. The 3 gunas are the qualities in which entire creation can be interpreted, and I've discussed all this more in detail in the Kaivalya Marga classes. Please do see those classes as well. There is extreme inertia as one quality, which is called tamas. There is creative pursuit, which is sattva, illumination. An idea comes. Purely in the state of idea, it is sattva. For that idea, once it is materialized, it enters into a state of inertia because it's fulfilled. Right? An idea is born, an idea is fulfilled. So you have an idea that is born coming up, which is sattva. An idea that is fulfilled, therefore it attains inertia of fulfillment, so it is called tamas. In between is activity, activity that takes this idea and works towards fulfilling that idea. So that is called rajas, the quality is rajas. So when we say kshipta, the chitta is kshipta, which is hyper, extremely hyper, it means it's extremely caught up in this activity stage. You have illumination, you have inertia, which is fulfillment, but then we get caught in the activity. And we get too caught up in the activity that we forget what was the purpose and what is the fulfillment. We are too caught up in the procedures, in the bureaucracies, in the do's and don'ts, in the good and the bad, and we get caught in that extreme activities. It applies in almost all aspects of our life. If I want to learn a song, for example, because it is beautiful, there is illumination, there is sattva. If I have learned the song, it will become inertia. But what happens is, I begin to learn the song, then I get into the nuances of the song, then I want to sing like X, I want to sing like Y, I keep practicing this and that, and I get so caught up in the technicality of the song, the spirit of the song, the illumination part of it is kind of gone. Now I'm caught up in this, I get stressed out, I get upset, I want to enter into competitions, I want to sing better than somebody else, and therefore it becomes kshipta, rajas. But if I have learned the song simply, focused on a little bit and enjoyed the fulfillment, it would have been over. But most of us, we get caught in the kshipta. Our work, our life, our day-to-day life, it gets caught. So being caught in that rajas, in the center, in the activity part, is kshipta, extreme. Mudha is inertia. In inertia, what happens? I don't want anything. There is a false sense of contentment that we bring about. Oh, no, it's okay. I am not interested in all that. I am content where I am. Are you really content, or are you lazy? Is it inertia that is speaking through us? Many of us adopt philosophies of Ramana Maharishi. We adopt philosophies of Adi Shankara, and we become philosophers. We say, oh, God is in me, I am God, so why go to temples, why do all these discipline and all? If I am God, then it's okay. All that is an expression of tamas, inertia, mudha. It is mudha. It is not yoga, it is not illumination, it is not enlightenment, it is mudha. Only the person will know in his conscience what he is talking about. Because Ramana Maharishi, Adi Shankara, Lord Buddha, and all these great saints and seers and avatars went through intense discipline, intense yearning, and then they reached that point of oneness, and therefore they were sharing their experience from that state. What do? We simply borrow that end product and say, oh yeah, now I got it. So that is Muda talking. Muda is a false sense of contentment, laziness to do anything, and therefore we say, oh no, God will take care of everything. And we put that devotion as an excuse for non-performance. We want to live the life, we don't want to do any discipline, but then we have this convenient mode of saying, oh, this is my fate, this is karma, or God is going to take care of it. All that is Muda talking. Muda, inertia. That is extreme Muda. So you have Kshipta and Muda, right? Vikshipta is you're caught up in this rajas, but then illumination starts also giving you direction. Vikshipta, the third chitta that we were talking about, it's not completely caught up in the rajas. There is an influence of sattva that we tend to keep going back to that creative idea. But then rajas keeps pulling us back. So we are caught between the sattva and the rajas. Creativity, illumination, meditation, concepts that are ideas, and then we come to practice, and we go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So we are in that vikshipta stage. Most of the spiritual seekers get caught in this vikshipta stage between sattva and rajas. There is very little influence of inertia, but it is very little at this stage. That is the third one. Then there is fourth one. The fourth one. The fourth one, what Vyasa says, is ekagra, 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 oneness, one-pointedness. where the mind finally settles on one object, on one thing, and sees the object, perceives the object or the circumstances as exactly as it is presented, not with some preconditioned, predetermined mindset and so on. It sees the person, it sees the circumstance, it sees the object as the object is, without any past influences or future expectations. It is exactly as is. Ekagra. Therefore, the mind becomes that object completely with no contamination. That one-pointedness is where yoga begins. That is the state of yoga. Ekagra. Ekagra is complete focus on the objects, so much so there is nothing else that exists. Now, in philosophical terms, when I completely meditate on the I-ness in me, the I, just the I, not I as Sundar, not I as the soul or I as God, or just the I, only the I remains. That is ekagra, one-pointed, focused attention. We all experience that, but it is a fleeting experience, right? When Patanjali said now, means he has understood, now that you have understood this and you have experienced this, I am ready to teach you, he says. So you imagine how much of discipline that his disciples would have gone through to earn the Yoga Sutras, which is now readily available for you and me, that we can learn from the comfort of our homes. Vyasa includes a fifth element of chitta, which is what this Yoga Sutra is about, which is where we want to be, which is the ultimate achievement of yoga. So the four we can always relate. So broadly we say chitta is of four types, but then there is a fifth one. There's always a fifth one. The fifth one is called nirodha. Nirodha. Nirodha is even this one-pointed thought also goes away. That is something which we need to strive for and will achieve. So that is what Patanjali in this first chapter of Yoga Sutras, which consists about 51 sutras, the first chapter is called the Samadhi Pada. He is explaining this whole process much in detail. So this first chapter among the four chapters is very crucial and very important for us to understand. What is this Samadhi? If this is the highest state, how do I experience that highest state? What does he call it? Are there any variations to it? Right? We will study this in the sutras as we go along. Vyasa adds one more stream of thought, which I want to leave you all with. He says each of these states of the chitta, each of these you can attain samadhi. In mudha you can attain samadhi. That might be news to you all, right? That's why I went back to the original commentary of Vyasa. He says that is the dharma of the chitta. It is the innate nature of the chitta, whatever form it will attain samadhi. But that kind of samadhi is not yoga. Yoga begins from the fourth type, ekagra. When that one-pointedness comes, that samadhi is where yoga begins. Ekagra and nirodha, the fourth and the fifth type, is where yoga truly begins, where the union happens, where the expansion of consciousness happens. The other samadhis are simply samadhis, a state of trance, a state of complete absorption, all of that happens, but it's not yoga. Now you might say, wait a minute, mudha. Mudha is inertia. How can I be in state of samadhi in inertia? So mudha, think of addiction. Let us say I'm an alcoholic, okay? And all I can think of is when to have my next drink. What happens there? The mind is so obsessed with getting alcohol that it is so focused on alcohol and is so caught up in its addiction that it is unable to think of anything else. Which is why alcoholism is a vice, because it stops you from thinking. You will, every single penny that you get, you will put away for drinking. You might ruin your health, you might ruin your family, you might not have money to eat, but you don't care. The mind is unable to think of that because it is obsessed with this addiction of wanting alcohol. So moodha. So Vyasa is indicated to us that even in moodha you can attain, the mind can attain that state of complete trance-like state, samadhi-like state, where there is no other thought but addiction. Sugar is another example, right? We cannot think of eating if there is no sweet on the plate. And therefore we have brought in sweets everywhere somehow. So we addiction. That is kind of moodha. Similarly, think of that. So that is, the chitta can take you even there into samadhi, but that kind of samadhi is not yoga. Then kshipta. We can get so caught up in activity. For example, one of the tendencies of the mind is anger. Kama, krodha, lobha, anger, lust, greed. We can become so obsessed with greed that I'm constantly working, doing business, making more money, more money, more money, more money. I don't even know why anymore. But the mind doesn't know anything beyond that, and therefore the mind gets obsessed. I need to buy this property, I need to buy that property, I need to make more money, and therefore it is caught in that. Like for example, when evening comes, we switch on television. Right? We don't know what else to do in the evenings. We'll say, how else do I pass time? I switch from one channel to the other and somehow I'm caught up. Kshipta. In that also, we can attain samadhi. Extreme anger, no other thought other than revenge alone persists. Greed, no other thought other than acquisition persists. Lust, no other thought other than that particular object or the person that I am after, that alone persists. All these are samadhis of the kshipta chitta. But that is not yoga. He is very clear in his commentary. He says those are all gives you pleasure and gives you that state of equilibrium and so on, but that's not. One is addiction, drugs and so on that can give you a state of that bliss or trance, but that's not yoga. Kshipta, extreme anger, extreme greed, extreme egotism, extreme lust, all of that extremes can also give you that state of no other thought but that alone, but that's not yoga. So you have these states of mind, apply this in our own lives, you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. So the chitta has all of these, and vikshipta is a combination of these, okay? So the chitta, the mind stuff if you will, can attain a false sense of samadhi, a false sense of satisfaction, which is why we say the senses are giving me joy. Why do you think when I go for the second round of ice cream, or if there's a laddu, a sweet dish that is prepared, why do we go for a second round? Why do we love that? Because we are experiencing the false sense of samadhi or trance-like state. The pleasure centers in the brains are triggered by the senses, and at that moment there is a sense of climax, a sensual climax that happens when you sip in lemon juice or you take the first bite of the gulab jamun or the sweet, whatever you have, whatever is your favorite dish, or the when you lick the ice cream, I guess, whatever it is. Sensual experiences explode in your brain and you get a false sense of a trance-like state. We get addicted to that. We think that is pleasure and that is the ultimate pleasure, and we keep chasing that again and again and again. Vyasa says that is either moodha or kshipta or vikshipta, but none of these are experiences of yoga. The experience of yoga begins with ekagraha, one-pointedness, and matures into nirodha. Nirodha is complete absorption. So there are terms that he has used in the very first commentary. I cannot go into that right now. I will keep that as the sutras reveal themselves to us. He uses these, the trance that you achieve in one-pointedness, he calls it samprajñāta samadhi, and the trance that is induced in complete state of absorption, he calls that asamprajñāta samadhi. I know these are Sanskrit terms, I'm not going to explain to them, I'm explaining them now. We'll explain to them as we go along, because too much information at this stage will just mean nothing. At this stage, let us understand this 4+1 types of chitta, because the nirodha is really beyond the chitta. So anyway, 4+1. the 4 types of mudha, kshipta, vikshipta, ekagra, and the last one is nirodha. This is what the chitta is all about. Now that we have understood these chittas, let us begin the study of yoga. That is what Patanjali means by the first aphorism, atha yogānuśāsanam. Let us learn the discipline of yoga. I hope this is clear and in a manner that we can all relate to, and I hope to continue in the same manner. Please do let me know if you think I'm going too fast or too slow. It will help me as I make these classes more available. Your feedback is very crucial, so do mention it in the comments. I do always appreciate it. I read each and every one of those comments. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share this. Thank you for watching. As always, stay blessed, stay inspired. Namaste.
क्लीं कैवल्य